Okay, everyone. Jeremy Berriault. I'm in Toronto, Canada. Been in technology for about 30 years. I'll give you a kind of quick nose note. Bunch of different roles between developer QA to senior leadership, senior executive. Now, myself and a few of my other colleagues, we've created Berriault Associates Consulting Group, where we focus on Agile delivery, Agile coaching, implementation, and quality assurance as well. So when I created this deck, this deck here in this presentation we're going to talk about is kind of my journey 2001, and it's progressed through there. And what I found was that a lot of organizations, and even now some of the clients that I deal with, they talk about Agile maturity and that they're mature as an Agile organization. And we're going to go through today and how I'm going away from saying maturity, because there's some connotations from previous waterfall and old way of doing things that when you talk about maturity kind of ties in. So you'll see it, because when we talk about maturity, it's a lot about moving and hitting milestones or hitting steps, right? Like if you look at psychological maturity and business maturity, like psychological, as we grow, as we mature ourselves, there's mental, physical, emotional, somatic development. And then when we look at business, really on the business side, and everyone's seen it. You've either in a startup, it's kind of chaotic at first, and then you become aware, you enable, you're managed, you're really, it's just, you're kind of hitting steps. You're going through, okay, now you're doing this now you're at this, and really it's like you're getting what you're doing for that. And when we look at Agile from a history perspective, like Agile's been around for a long time. Like if you look at Kanban's been since the 40s. The 80s, you had the RUP and unified process, from XP to feature driven to test driven. And all that was done before even the manifesto was created back in 2001, and that kind of drives out at the world today. If we look at when we go to Scrum, how well do we do the ceremonies?
Jeremy, stop a little bit. I don't know, but it is not still good enough. We can hear you, but not always. Sometimes you're disappearing. Can we do something to make our connection?
Yeah, just a second.
Because it's better as before, but okay, we can see now, can see person now, but we can see your slides, but your voice is something interrupting. Can we do something to be better, to enjoy your presentation?
Maybe you could use your phone for sharing internet. Maybe.
Yeah, let me. Okay, does this sound a little better, or?
It's good.
Try to do, but some time to time it is interrupting. It is better as at the beginning, but we try to speak with us, try to do, I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Let me. Okay, so I've changed to a third mic now. Hopefully that
okay,
helps.
Don't worry. Don't speak very quickly. Try to do
that. Okay, no problem. Sorry, everyone.
Okay. So it's connected.
Maybe. maybe my computer hasn't had its coffee this morning. That's probably why.
Okay.
But
okay. 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 Try to do the best. Can you continue now? Okay, you are ready. Please continue if you are ready.
Okay, so we'll get through. We'll get through it. And so when we look at ceremonies, the releases. So what normally will happen is that you're kind of turning Agile into almost a waterfall type environment where you're just kind of doing stuff on an intermittent sprints. Like you're instead of like a 6-month, 7-month Agile project, or sorry, a waterfall project, you're doing everything in like 1-2 week intervals. So it's different. And when we look at maturity and when we look at because now you're kind of doing Agile. If you've seen this before, this is Simon Sinek's gold. Circle from why, how, and what. We are the steps within. We have to change the way we go through it. So as I talked about before, my story, I progressed through, and it was probably in the last 10 years when I got to a senior leadership executive role where I started having, I couldn't figure things. It was hard for me to figure things out as to why things weren't working as well as everyone thought they should in using Agile. Like we were still having those constant firefights. We were like feuding teams, like red tape all over the place. So we were just kind of doing Agile. And it was about probably 6 years ago when it was actually my sons at the time, 10 and 8, and they're playing with their cards. Things sort of lit up where I could now see the difference between maturity and evolving. Because when you look at maturity, like I said, you're looking at improving and just getting better at what you're doing. And evolving is more in line with, I think, what everyone thought when they started the Agile Manifesto. Because when you look at the Agile Manifesto, it's no different than like other philosophers. You look at Aristotle, Descartes, Paul Young. It's just ways to approach issues and interpretations within those guidelines. So what happened now is if you look at it in that fashion, this allows you to evolve. This allows your Agile development, Agile teams, Agile groups to evolve. Montaigne another philosopher had a quote in one of his essays where he's going to paraphrase, he's going to contradict what he says earlier. Like he's always going to be in a contradiction because things are going to change, and he evolved his way of thought on different situations. So in doing so, if we go back to the golden circle and way Simon Sinek brings up is you're going from the why out to the what. That is what is being Agile, where you're kind of thinking more from the inside out And the what is your framework, whether it's Scrum, Safe, Kanban. Those are your tool sets that help you get there. But it's the organization, the teams, the individual passion and the why they want to get things done to move along. Because then that helps with your vision, where you have the mindset, you help the collaboration, you get an effective flow, and you improve. That's where you get your improvement in employee, and it kind of helps organically grow a way of doing things across multi, right? Where you're not focused on just doing the steps or doing what's with the guideline or Safe. It's kind of getting past the leadership view of kind of doing this and that, kind of pulling in different directions. Because when traditional views of maturity, they want you to kind of like, it should be overall, it's not getting better at doing something, it's trying to say, okay, we just got to blow through all this. You're taking things at a different view so that you can progress forward. You're then, from there, it's kind of taking that inconsistency around. Because when we look at frameworks, not all frameworks are good for all teams, because there may be something different within that team to move along. And that's where, when you look at inconsistencies within organizations that try to be agile or go through an agile transformation, they feel we're a Scrum shop. Everyone must do Scrum. Well, if you try to make your finance team go through Scrum, chances are it won't work based on how they deliver what they need to deliver. I've worked with an organization where they tried to do that, and what we did instead was we turned the finance team, they're still going agile, they want to do the transformation, but we made them use Kanban instead, because it was more effective for getting their work done and tracking, compared to the development team, which were doing 2-week sprints. And when you create those views and trying to kind of mature, what's going to happen is you're going to create that fragmented team, whether it's a matrix environment, you're not sure of the roles, there's some inconsistency with the direction and confusion. And the other part about maturity is now people get stuck with the rules. So when they say that, oh, we're a very mature agile shop because everyone knows this, everyone knows the guidelines, the events, and how we're going to get through them. We do them on clockwork, and we don't deviate any way possible to try to adapt. Or you can have the other spectrum where it's utter chaos. They take the verbiage from the Agile Manifesto and their thoughts of what Agile is, and just treat it as, well, we can do whatever we want whenever we want. So it's not helping anyone get better at being agile. They're just kind of either following steps, or it turns into a complete ad hoc view. And when you have multiple teams that are trying to work through and you want to become that agile shop, I have the best analogy I have is a paired car race with a Corvette, with a team of a Corvette and a Chevette. I'm okay. If I'm saying Chevette here, it's kind of dating myself because a Chevette was my very first car back in 1989-ish. And there was no horsepower. But imagine all your teams are running in a race or driving in a race where you have to get to the finish line at the same time. One of two things is going to happen is either the Chevette's going to try to keep up with the Corvette and it's going to fall apart and it's going to run into issues, or the Corvette's going to leave some of that horsepower on the table just so the Chevette can stay in pace, but the competition is going to get ahead. So what this does is it creates a bad system. And when you create a bad system within the organization, you're destroying kind of what the good of people, what they're doing. And there's no team growth. I put here gaming the system. And I don't know if anyone has experienced it. I've experienced it. I've worked with teams that have done this where story points, when they put story points up, if the senior executive saying, all you teams should be doing 50 story points per sprint. Well, when they put in the tickets or put in the stories and start pointing the stories, maybe they will add a few more stories to add a few more points to a story just so that they can hit that 50 without kind of showing the full value of what they can do, just so that they can meet what the senior executives want to see. And it negatively impacts everyone involved because now you're going to create those frustrations. Back in 2009, I believe it was 2019, 2020, there was a State of Agile report. And when they looked at it, they studied about 2,000 different organizations, and they found 5% of those organizations would be considered truly agile from end to end. And if you think about it, how, like I showed you before, from the history of Agile frameworks have been around since starting in 1940. So why is it that when we look at stuff from 1940, we keep saying Agile maturity, we're mature, up until 2021, why is it only 5%? Actually, I believe the report came out in 2021. It jumped up to 6%, I think. I'll have to double check. But that's way too long for organizations with the knowledge and information that we all have to only be 5%, considered 5% mature. So that's when I'm going through this. That's what I'm saying. Like we got to treat ourselves as an organism that is trying to be the best that we can be for everyone. We want to ensure that we are moving along and having the guidance to get to where we need to get. It's not the command and control, which a lot of organizations still kind of run into, where you have the senior leadership saying, this is what you got to deliver and when. And you got your time to do it. So you're still you're tied to that deadline and what you have to deliver, and you're still being frantic to get there. And maybe it could be next to impossible to meet the demands of everything going in, but you're pushing yourself too much. And it decreases that smooth flow. right? If you think how we evolved over time, it's true. We go back to have great views on how to progress. How they wrote those views, their tools, were different. Like from parchment paper using a feather and ink and progressing along, the ideas evolved over time. It just got better at documenting. So if we look at it in that fashion, we have all these tools to get to be agile, to help us be agile. And they've evolved, they've kind of evolved over time based on kind of what experiences others had so they can try to make things better. But what it is the mindsets inside, like, for everyone is to do these steps. And going there, it takes away the focus of being strategic. If we look at it being from an evolution perspective, now the senior leadership can focus on strategy. The teams can focus on meeting that strategy, and they can work together to get to where they need to go. And it moves the leadership away from the tactical. So this sort of shift away from maturity is actually going to free the leadership to do what they should be doing. And when you define those agile values within the teams, within the organization, that helps move along into that evolutionary state. If you look at Google, I think we can all agree Google is really good at deploying, at moving, at changing and meeting market demands. That if you look at their values that they have on their website, on their corporate site, taking the step back and having kind of like the agile view and tinge to it, all those values would be considered agile values that meet specific needs, either in leadership, either in teams, either in how they deliver, how they represent themselves. It shows that they're being agile within the organization. They're telling everyone what it is. I've worked with a team where we defined it was a team of 8, and we defined agile values for them, like how they viewed at being agile. And it was eye-opening for them, because at first they focused on, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this better. And I asked them, it's like, well, why are we being agile? Why are we agile? Like, what gets you up in the morning? And it changed their focus away from the actual framework. They actually started looking within themselves on how they want to be and how they want to present themselves to the organization. And how they want the organization to see why they are doing what they're doing, so that they can meet the organization demands, so that they can be aligned with the organization values. And that's kind of doing that improves the engagement within the teams. So if you have multiple teams that they can have different agile values, but they are somewhat linked, now it improves the synchronization and engagement within them. Because now you have something that kind of makes a better fit for everyone, for the organization. You're getting something where the structure that supports the organization at being agile fits. Sorry. And that helps move along. Now you're creating those self-managed teams that can be in sync. Cells in the body, organs in the body, if you think about it in this way, our body is being agile. We're evolving, right? We have different parts, we have different organs, which could be different departments within an organization that have their own goals to keep the body alive and to get better at what they're doing and create a better life, where the heart is to sort of sleep, like pumping better. Its digestive system is digesting food better. They're working together to improve. And it's that continuous improvement that helps become agile. That's where you start seeing the value coming out of it, at going from the why to the what. You're not getting past you're getting past the limitations of considered maturity. If you look at CMMI or TMMI for testing, yes, they have their maturity models and their maturity steps, and they are starting to look at they are tying in Agile into a lot of it, like whether frameworks, Agile delivery. But if you listen to the wording on what they expect, it's still kind of an evolution view on how to improve and how to become that optimized organization. Right? It's about adapting across. And some of the things that have to happen is everyone in the teams has to have the stewardship of the way of doing it. Most organizations, they'll have the leadership kind of command and control, look down at everyone saying, thou shalt do this. This is what you have to do. You do not deviate when you're looking at being agile. Look at it getting better and moving along and progress of the flow. They have the stewardship of how they're going to get things done. They have the opportunity to say, you know what, Scrum is not working for us. Maybe we need to look at something else to get us past these humps, to evolve the teams, to progress forward. I've seen there are articles out there where it's viewed and teams have kind of taken things out of Scrum for them to move forward, to get their work done, because it was maybe causing impediments or there was no value. And I know there are some people out there that will say, it's like, well, if you're not doing all the events or ceremonies, as they call them, then you're not doing Scrum. True, but they're being agile in getting their work done. Maybe they're using different components. And that's the thing, is when you organize and push through, we have such a huge toolbox to get work done. We have so many different things that can help us move along. And we don't want to fall into just using one tool to get the work done. You're never going to build a house with just a hammer. You need saws, you need a whole lot more tools to build out a house. So delivering and building out a program or a system or a marketing plan or a sales plan, you're not just going to use one tool. You want to evolve and organize. Right? You want the teams to be able to be enabled to get that work done. And that enabling is great for leadership. All the leadership needs to do is give them the guidelines and guidance. Let the teams work together to get to where they need to go. no different than like going back to the body. You have like the brain is keeping everything in check with their guidelines, but the rest of the organs are doing what they need to do. The brain's not telling the stomach like directly saying, hey, you start digesting food now. Right? Like food's in, the stomach knows it's got to deal with it, it's got to move the food and does what it needs to do. Different parts within the cell have their own duty to deal with some teams enabled to get their work where organically Agile is growing. The views of Agile, the why of Agile, and the different teams are taking the tools that they can use to become Agile, to get better at what they're doing. So you can go from a team to a department to the organization to other departments. Everything is now moving as one. Everything is now progressing. Now the organization is not only producing value for their clients, they're also evolving. So now they can jump ahead. Now they can see the value. They can get more value. They can get the expected value for being Agile. So it's not about doing Agile. It's about being Agile. And we need to keep that going. We need to not get stuck in that, oh, we're doing Scrum. Okay, we're just going to follow the steps and chug along. We can't be complacent at how we get better at what we do. We got to kind of remove some frustrations, like instead of just dealing with it. I'm currently working with a team now where they went through an Agile transformation. They're using Scrum, and really they've gone through a few retrospectives and coaching them along. And the one thing I've noticed after the first couple of retrospectives was they just feel like they're just doing the steps. They're not getting better at what they're doing. They're just okay with what's happening. And after a few discussions with different teams, kind of started giving them planting the seeds on how they can evolve, how they can get better at what they're doing, how they can succeed at what they're doing. Because I find for myself, when I coach teams, I don't want to directly tell them what to do or like how to do it. I approach it from a leadership from behind. I kind of guide them, I plant those seeds. Now that doesn't mean it works all the time. There are probably some times where directly, this is what you need to get better at. This is have them that view of how expected servant leader. You're giving the direction and they're going there and getting it done. From there, you now hitting that target is much easier. Right? Because now you're not focused on maturity. You're not focused on hitting certain steps. You're focused on just getting better at evolving. And you're no longer, say, scattershot, trying to throw out features upon features. Now you can be a little more laser focused on what you need to deliver to meet the needs of a client, not just the wants. And now you're also able to adapt. And that's kind of the key thing. With one organization I was with, the strategy changed, no word of a lie, about the organization strategy changed like probably 4 times in 6 months. And the direction for the delivery was very chaotic. And it was hard to turn. It was hard to adapt to those particular changes. And you can have 2 sprints in, and then all of a sudden the senior leadership, oh, no, we're not going to use this program. We're not going to deliver this. We're going to now deliver that. And it's a little bit disheartening for teams when we get through there. But we need to be able to adapt, and that maturity doesn't kind of help you adapt. Evolving helps you adapt. So I hope you see as we go through this, as speaking, that like we're talking more about evolving, not about maturity. Because really, if you look at, again, we go back to the manifesto, we go back to all the documents, all the books that have been going through, there's no real kind of steps that says this is your maturity level X at being agile. There is none. It's more about how we adapt and move. And like doing that, now you're looking at something that's more scalable. You're not tied to those steps that we talked about at the beginning. And that is where the real key thing that happens when you create that organic environment is now you can grow, the teams can move and progress. And that teamwork gives you growth. Now you're creating high value teams. Now you're creating a better environment for everyone, for all teams. So it's some of the teams, if you think about it, like let's go with the development team for software development. You have your developers, your architects, your product managers, your QA, maybe you have automation on there. If you think about it as a hockey team is similar. You have your goalie, your defenseman, your wingers, and your center. But they work together. Now, a good hockey team, they work together in sync in that they're able to back each other up, which is the promise of being agile, is to create a team that can help each other achieve their goal. So it's not like if you've ever played table hockey, where you have players that are only in one direction and can only go so far. In actual hockey, you could have with the puck to go towards the goalie, forward or winger is close by, will take his spot so that there's no gap. So that's where we need teams to see and how to evolve. Because it's not just there's no endpoint in continuously improving. If you look at maturity, there is an endpoint. Right? You've hit a certain level, but in agile there is progressing and moving along. So I talked about Google, and everyone feels, and I've seen some organizations, we're going to do what they do. We're going to do what Google does, or we're going to do what Microsoft or Spotify. We're going to do what they do. And the issue with that is that you can do what they're doing, but you're not creating an environment where there is any progression. So you don't want to be there so that you do what everyone else expects. Because if you look at maturity, that's what everyone else expects. We want to be able to, we do want to be able to do it our way. So your way, so right, within your team, within your organization, to progress and evolve. So we don't want to be chasing the items to adapt, because every organization is saying, but how to be a little bit off onto the left, it might be unbeaten, it might be paid. But you want to choose the path that's right for you and your team and your department and organization. So as we go through what we've talked about over the past, well, my timer says 44 minutes, but I'm pretty sure about 5 minutes it was me trying to figure out my microphone. So I did breeze through these a little bit fast, and I do want to save time for some questions. But we need to kind of throw out that traditional organizational mindset. That's where maturity is stuck. And I think that's where, for me, that's how I see we're missing value out of being agile. And there isn't one playbook that's going to help anyone become agile. Everyone is different. And we need to be able to treat teams and organizations like organisms and how they progress and how they grow. So we need to be able to set ourselves apart. We want the team to set themselves apart and work with others and work with their partners and become better at what they're doing. Through being agile, not just the step, able to break free that 95 to be that agile organization. But reading and discussing with other teams it's that maturity view that's kind of becoming that sticking point. And even if you look at that study, like they talk about maturity, they say it's like, oh, they're very mature at agile. Like it's 5% is very mature, somewhat mature. But if you kind of take out that word and now view it as they're more evolved, they're more adaptable, they're more successful or efficient and effective at what they do. And those are some of the words that are used in that study. But it's the stepping away. I think you got to change that view and take maturity out and you replace it. Because we're not like others. Everyone on this call, we're all different and we all do things differently ourselves. But that's how we get to our end state. We get to our end goal. And in doing so, it ensures that you are no longer kind of running in last, like chasing everyone. Your team is now leading. Your team is now getting to where they need to get so that they can succeed at what they do. That's it for me. And I'm sorry, I'm about to lose my voice a little bit. Here's some of my contact information. I think through Lietuva, you can get a hold of me through there as well.